Well, in very unsurprising news, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has secured a fifth term in power. The United States has described this vote as neither free nor fair. Joining me now is former White House Chief of Staff and Bondi Partners consultant Mick Mulvaney. Mick, thanks so much for your time. I guess the reaction out of the US is one that we would find unsurprising, but in an election year, perhaps a little bit more interesting. Have Trump or Biden had anything to say about this?
Not much. I mean, Trump is always going to say something a little bit nicer about Putin for some reason, and I've never understood it, Laura. I just don't. Biden will come out and say that it was an unfair election, et cetera, and he'll say all the right things, and then Trump will say all of the right things, and then at the very end to say that he has a lot of respect for Putin. So it's been a very, very strange sort of interaction. I've never understood why Donald Trump does it. It doesn't seem to benefit him in terms of foreign policy, and certainly doesn't benefit in terms of domestic policy, but that's the way he's been for a long time.
Well, November is fast approaching. We now have our confirmed candidates pending, any huge upset or event later in the year, which you never rule out, by the way, given, the legal issues, the age of both of these men. I don't want to kill them off too early, but things do happen. How are the polls? How are things tracking? What's your kind of calm view of things now that the primaries are over?
Yeah, the calm view of things is that people are already tired of this election. People on the far right are really excited about Trump winning the nomination. People on the far left are excited about Biden winning the nomination. And people in the middle are like, oh, my goodness, do we really have to put up with this for the next 7 or 8 months? And the answer is yes. Keep in mind, Laura, this will be the longest general election in the history of our country. Both parties have never picked their candidates this early in the process. Of course, we've never had a former president running again in my adult lifetime. So it's going to be long. It's going to be tedious. What do you say? The polls, you ask about the polls, Trump is trending in the right direction. He had a great week. He just did. The Georgia case is falling apart against him. A judge ruled that one of the prosecutors needs to be removed from that case. That makes that case, that undermines the credibility of that case. And then the prosecution in the New York State case came in and said they forgot to give him a bunch of documents. And when I say a bunch, I mean tens of thousands of documents. And so the judge in that case has decided to delay the case by at least 30 days. It's been a great couple of weeks for Donald Trump. He's still trending in the right direction.
Yeah, he certainly is. And the trends are important, certainly. The overall sentiment, important as well. The media coverage and how he still, captures this audience as an entertainment value and all of that. But Mick, you're a numbers guy. You know how this works. And really, when it comes to November, it will be a handful of states. Swing states that will change hands if Donald Trump is to get there. Have you looked closely at where those states may or may not happen? What those states are?
Yeah, it's fascinating, Laura. There's about 5 or 6 of them. You and I will talk about them. We've talked about them before. We'll continue to talk about them for the next several months. Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada. The really interesting one right now is Michigan. This is the one that has several 100,000 Palestinian American registered voters.
Oof.
This state was
how many? Say that again.
Several 100,000.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
In a state that Donald Trump won by 40,000 votes in 2016, more than 100,000 people voted uncommitted in the Democrat primary as part of an organized attempt to set a protest vote to President Biden over his support for Israel in the war in Gaza right now. If the Democrats, that is scaring the Democrats to death. Yeah. Because if they cannot turn those votes around, they cannot win without Michigan. I know it sounds strange to folks who elect their prime minister or their president nationwide. Again, we don't do it. We do it state by state. So no one cares about California. It's voting for Joe Biden. Nobody cares about South Carolina. It's voting for Donald Trump. Only those 5 or 6 states in the middle are really going to care. And a small group on either side, right or left, could change the entire outcome of an election come November.